We start with our Newsmaker segment and focus on issues that are a frequent part of the day's news: immigration and immigration law. Those topics have been front and center the past several days as immigrant parents and children have been separated as they enter the U.S. at the southern border. Here to discuss immigration issues with us is Rekha Sharma Crawford, an immigration attorney in Kansas City. Rekha, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate you doing so.
Thank you.
In your private law practice, what are some of the immigration issues that you frequently encounter?
Well, I mean, right now, obviously, the family detention issues are big. Children who are going through removal proceedings, removal defense, individuals who are trying to obtain their status, and then also family-based sponsors. So if you're married to a citizen or you have a relative that you're petitioning for. So those are the types of cases that we take on. There
was a lot of controversy over separating parents and children at the border, and it's been all over television and newspaper, radio, throughout the media. A lot of people have been very upset. President Trump issued an executive order to stop the separation. Is that going to solve the problem?
I don't think it will. I think it's when you read the executive order doesn't say release the children. It says make bigger facilities to house the whole family. So I think that's going to cause more issues. It's not necessarily going to solve the issue. It may temporarily solve the issue of having the separation between the children and the parents, but I don't think in the grand scheme of things it will get completely solved.
So under this present executive order, they can be housed together, children and parents, for a minimum of 20-some days if you follow a court order. I think it's called the Flores decision.
Right. So the Flores decision actually came in 1997. Yeah. And in that decision, what it came about is it was it's called Flores v. Reno. And it was then Janet Reno, and the policy was to hold, when children would come to the border, they would hold them. And at the time, the court said, look, you can't do that. You can't just put children in indefinite custody without some kind of safeguards, because I mean the United States government is not in the business of creating daycare prisons, right?
Well, it may be now.
Well, and ironically, they've asked the district court judge to allow for them for these facilities to be licensed as daycares.
To modify the Flores decision.
So I think that's still there. The Flores decision, of course, as part of the executive order, he has asked to modify it.
All right, we hear people talk about immigration rights, and you deal with immigration rights. What rights does a person receive automatically when he or she enters the country without permission, illegally, undocumented, whatever term you prefer?
Well, I mean, there are constitutional protections. The Constitution does not speak in terms of illegal or unillegal, right? They talk in terms of citizens, and there are certain rights that are reserved to citizens, but there are also rights that are said to be of person, right? So those rights are things like unlawful searches and seizures, the right to the Fifth Amendment, the right to due process. I mean, these are all concepts that are meant and in the Constitution listed as towards the person.
So there are rights that this country grants to people who enter illegally or undocumentedly or whatever?
Absolutely. I mean, look, you can't strip away the fact that they're still a person.
Yeah. Do other countries extend these rights as broadly and generously as this country does?
I think it depends on the country, obviously.
Mexico.
I think Mexico, there are rights that Mexican citizens have that,
But immigrants, not Mexican citizens.
I'm not a scholar on Mexican law, but what I can tell you is that asylum seekers internationally and universally are treated differently. And so I think there is a difference between an individual who is fleeing persecution and someone who's not fleeing persecution.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is this country humane in its treatment, generally speaking, of those who enter illegally?
Currently, no.
No?
I would say no. I would say that if you look at the detention facilities, and you look at the opportunities that are taken away, due process issues are fundamentally outlined in the Constitution, and they do not exist right now. We know that the Attorney General has said he wishes to do away with due process for individuals who do come in and may have a legitimate way to remain or even ask to remain. The conditions of due process in the country are at risk. And I will tell you that the current treatment of those at the southern border they should be concerning to most individuals.
But there's not an inherent right to just come into the United States and live here if you choose to.
Of course not,
Yeah.
and no one is advocating for
And
that.
countries have to have enforceable borders. We'd all agree on that, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
We're running short on time, as we always do, unfortunately. I wish we could go on for many more minutes. But finally, if you could unilaterally make one significant change in immigration law, what would you change?
I think what I would change if it was immigration laws, I would have people who actually function at the border and function at, who do this for a living at the table making policy. I think so often policy is made in a theoretical way that it's unworkable and unsustainable. And that's why you see things that, like what's going on at the southern border happen.
Tough issue and a lot to talk about. You did it very well. Thank you very much for coming in. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
That is attorney Rekha Sharma Crawford. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus.